Welcome to this Weight of Fire video. It's the Pandemic Files number 3. And I'm joined again tonight by Ian, Chris the Frantic Gamer down the bottom there, and Claudio from Germany. So thanks guys for coming to join us.
Thank you for having us. Or me.
Hello.
Yeah. So today we're going to do another review of, we're going to start with the Forge Fathers. We're then going to talk about lovely mugs, product placement as well. When I say lovely mugs, I mean your visage, of course.
We're so on brand.
A little overview of them and a few sort of tactical tips. I think that's what we're talking about, really, isn't it? Tactical tips. Tactics.
What do we know?
Nothing. Literally nothing. However, we are going to talk some rubbish at you. So, if you want to listen. If not, just turn off. Okay. So, Forge Fathers. So, basically, space dwarves. That's pretty much it, isn't there? Nothing else to say. So, I think
Because you have to analyze everything to fantasy, right?
Yeah, of course. Everyone knows that. But I guess a little bit like your sort of standard fantasy sort of view of dwarves, they have a lot of the same characteristics. They're not very tall, slightly hairy. That's pretty much it. Like mining. Do like some mining.
Yeah, I do like mining.
I think there are a few things here. They are also good at it. They don't only like it, but they are really, really good at it. And another analogy to like our fantasy dwarfs are that they are really ancient, and like their own legends tell about the creation of things time before time. And if it's true or not that they were there, it's still possibly that
They'll make it sound like they did it all.
Yeah. But still, even if they weren't there when the Big Bang happened or whatever,
they made the Big Bang.
Yeah, like a hammer swing on the anvil and the galaxy was created, something like that. But they are still ancient, and you can tell because they know stuff and they are really good at it.
And they're an independent sort of, a star realm. I guess you're going to tell us about this in a second, Claudio. But they're an independent race. So a lot of the factions we talk about in Deadzone are subservient or coexist alongside the GCPS, which is the overarching world. And we'll maybe do a session one day just talking about more of the sort of fluff behind it. But they are very much first among equals, aren't they? The Forge Fathers. They trade very closely with the GCPS.
Yeah, they had enough or many conflicts, and the first time like they engaged the GCPS, they stood their ground, and neither really won, but the Forge Fathers like won in their terms because they stopped the expansion of the GCPS in their realm, which most of the other factions really couldn't do. So in some way they are the winners in this stalemate, but Forge Fathers always have plans. That's like one of the things. So maybe they just use the GCPS, and in their eyes, the new established human empire could rise and fall in a few lifetimes of a dwarf. So maybe they just wait for something else, for the vacuum that follows. Who knows?
Very pessimistic, Claudio.
Well, I'm just thinking as the dwarves, and as we all know, they are always a bit grumpy and pessimistic. So
it's all about the long game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about the long game, and they trade, as you already said. Like also, peacekeeper armor is their engineering. So the GCPS like trades with them, and they profit from this trades, and obviously the Forge Fathers too. But they also clash against each other many times, even peacekeepers against Forge Guard, so to say.
And a lot of the clashes are over sort of trying to strip the resources from new stars or worlds and stuff like that. So the first one there tries to sort of strip them out, sort of thing, before the others get there. And then the Forge Fathers will tell us, oh no, well, we claim this, we don't recognize your ownership of this. Just because you signed a contract saying that you were going to buy this planet doesn't mean that you get it.
They hate to be double crossed or something like that, because they are very honorable race about kinship and duty and everything. And if they have a contract about the world and some corporation thinks they have to have a better profit out of double crossing the Forge Fathers, they get really angry, and you don't want to have angry space dwarfs invading your mining colony. No, that's
yeah. So they are, like you say, they're hitting a lot of sort of standard tropes for dwarfs, wherever they be, and I think it's quite good that they're in a science fiction universe, because they're not typically in science fiction universes, actually, are they? Really aren't any comparable races in any current game system that I'm aware of, actually, which is good. Gives them a little sort of uniqueness to themselves.
Not currently. No.
currently.
Well, I mean, there used to be some old squats from Games Workshop back in the day, stuff like that, but long time ago. They were my favourites, actually. I had quite a few.
I was too young to know them.
Yeah, I was not too young to know them. Great. So, in Deadzone, the best science fiction skirmish game available.
Obviously.
Yeah, played on 8x8, 3-inch by 3-inch cube. There are other game systems available, inferior.
When I say it's the future, I mean that on so many levels.
So for Forge Fathers, what sort of troops are available? What sort of stuff's available for us then at the Forge Fathers? Your head is a giant Forge Father there with just his gun and his hammer.
Yes, it should.
You've got the beard for it.
Bearded, yeah.
So what can we take as the Forge Fathers?
They've got some pretty sweet options, actually. They've got Steel Warriors, which are more or less, if not better, than Enforcers.
Better.
As a troop.
Yeah.
I mean, they're shooting the same, they're surviving the same, they've got the armour. Plus, AP1 on the weapons, as standard. Yeah. They're brilliant.
Which is really, really annoying if you're playing as Enforcers.
Yeah,
because you paid for that armour.
Worthless.
Not doing anything. Because that is a interesting thing about Deadzone, isn't it? That armour doesn't factor into your sort of survive role like it does in a lot of other games. It is a separate almost a separate part of taking damage, that you take your hits and you survive against them, and then you apply the armour to reduce those even further. So AP weapons don't improve or worsen your survive roll at all, but they take off the armor that you have. So if you have no armor, that AP weapon isn't doing anything. It might seem a bit weird, but what that actually means is that the way armor piercing works is it's a very hard slug that puts a lot of force for a very small diameter to penetrate vehicles or armor. Whereas most of what you're thinking of really for sort of damaging is effectively a high explosive sort of round. So actually sort of bursting or tearing apart. That's getting very grim, this, isn't it? Sorry. So the idea is that the AP goes through armor, but if you don't have armor, it doesn't provide that much additional killing power because it's the slug that's still doing the same. Your heavily encased Enforcer is losing out against the Forge Fathers, whereas your puny Reb Trooper, it's just like, I can die by these just as easily as by anything else.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's more glorious for the cause.
Yeah, because you've paid for that armor piercing. You don't even need it. You could just, sneeze on me and I'd be dead. Yeah. Topical reference there. Sorry.
Bit close to the bone, mate.
Oops. Anyway, Forge Fathers.
So still
vectors that they
pretty awesome. If you're feeling a bit cheap, though, you could choose the Militia, where you get that same EP1, but they're not as good at shooting. They don't have the armor, but they are well cheap.
And they're only 1 victory point as well, aren't they? Unlike the Steel Warriors. So typically, I see people taking a couple, maybe 2 or 3 Militia, just to sort of bulk out and grab some objectives. Because a bit like the Enforcers, one of the biggest problems with Forge Fathers is they're expensive. So you're typically running, about 8 models at 150 points, and probably not many more at 200 because you tend to then buy something more expensive. You've not got a lot spare, have you?
Yeah, I personally like the Militia because, as we already said, they can stay behind on the back of your line and hold some objectives there and still shoot pretty good. They aren't as good as Steel Warriors. They are not trained, but they are still have awesome weapons, so they are still a threat. For the points, I quite like them if you're not going for the aggressive version of a cheaper troop.
Yeah, there's certainly no bad thing, are they? Well, 13 points, which is actually the cheapest model in the entire Forge Father list, actually. Cheaper even than the Brockers, which I guess we can talk about now.
Completely different. These things are not for shooting. They're for, I mean, I hesitate to say run, but moving forwards and hitting things with hammers.
Short legs, it's all about revolutions per second, isn't it? You know, your rate of moving.
Okay. Pace.
They are so angry, they are just as fast as those long legs. So
the Brockers are an interesting sort of sub-faction, really, aren't they, inside the Forge Father star realm? You know, they're not typical Forge Fathers. They're like a more of an engineer or a clanker or a tinker sort of sub-race, really. They live sort of outside of the normal social constraints of Forge Father sort of world, but they are very much Forge Fathers. So they actually, in the fluff, they have a lot more interaction with the humans and other races of the Warpath universe, because they are there at the margins, sort of helping out, making stuff, and so you tend to see them a lot more sort of interacting, perhaps say Star Saga or something like that. You know, where there's a multitude of races sort of involved and stuff. So they're an interesting little sort of part of the Forge Father realm. And they're very much more aggro, aren't they? They're sort of angry little dwarves. We've got dwarves who are already pretty angry. These ones are like angrier still.
Well, they're quite well visually not divided, but separate in terms of models as well. Whereas the Steel Warriors and so on are all quite blocky in their thick armor, and the Brockers have quite a different form about them, because they're shirt sleeves, if that, vests, some of them.
Dungarees, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. They remind me of bin men, actually.
It's because they're in the orange, isn't it?
It's the high vis, it is.
Yeah. When you step out the back of that dust truck, you don't want to get hit by a car.
Well, these guys just step out the back of an APC, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they're proper angry, aren't they? So they've got little hammers, they've got little pistols, actually quite good little pistols. They've got these burst pistols, haven't they? Range 3, which is better than some pistols. Actually, some pistols are only range 2. And they can rapid fire with them, which is quite a neat little trick. Most pistols you can't rapid fire with.
I mean, they shoot on 5s, which, considering their combat troops, is pretty good.
Yeah. And the rapid fire gives them the option of pinning, obviously, before they then go to smack someone. So if they're only a cube away, a cheeky little shot at someone, pinning them, and then going in and lamping them with the hammer, it's an extra 2 dice then, isn't it? You know. So yeah, if you use them well, they're pretty good. They're a little bit more fragile though, aren't they? Because whilst they are still the same survival 4+, the lack of any armor does mean that they do tend to die fairly quickly. But
as we've just discussed, armor sometimes isn't worth anything. So I think that survivor 4+ is still really valuable.
Well, it certainly keeps them in the game. I've been firing at these buggers a lot sometimes, and they're just like wounded or something, but they won't just, why won't you die?
I think we've already talked about it last episode with the Marauders, which seem to have, like, with their 4-up survive, they seem to never die, and it's the same with the Brocker, only that the Brocker are better fighters.
Hashtag easy mode.
Yeah. So yeah, Brockers are fun.
They're better than easy mode. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
better than easy mode. And obviously, when they get into fight, they fight on 4s and Frenzy 1, and the hammer has AP 1. So those enforcers, they are still
smashed in the face big time.
Absolutely. The Brockers, tasty little option actually, and again a troop, which is fantastic. Some people run all Brocker lists, actually, don't they? Yeah, and that's a viable option. It really is. It's a bit mono sort of theme, of course, but
yeah,
it is
unimaginative, you might say.
But you have many options you can take with the Brockers, because you don't only have the troop choices, but many other choices who fit aesthetically and from the fluff better with like an all Brocker force, which makes them a fun way to just like play out a story or your own strike team without being like the rigid old angry dwarf, but more of like the rebel who goes out and trades and fights for his, or without being checked down by some laws or something. You just go for it and get what you want.
Yeah, so in the list, they've really got actually 5, I've just added them up, 5 Brocker specialists. That's actually criminal, isn't it? Someone's changed that. So they've got the engineer, the Brocker specialist, who basically just allows you to have specialist weapon options, which tend to be fairly...
Well, it tends to be the flames as well. I was just having a look at that. It's the Dragon's Breath for your range 2, it burns, or the Magma Rifle for range 3, AP2, it burns.
That's quite nasty.
That's
then
tasty,
you've got,
isn't it?
Yeah, then you've got some... Then you've got your Brocker bike. So they've got like a fast attack bike, move 2-4. Pretty tidy. 20 points and weight of fire on his guns. Pretty good, actually.
It's cheap, it's fast, and it's a good all-rounder. So I personally really like it because, when the Forge Fuzzers lack one thing, it's a fast unit, and 20 points is really, really cheap.
Yeah.
And
the new evade rule...
When you consider it's only 2 points more than a Steel Warrior, it looks exceptional good value.
Yeah. And it's armored, I think.
1 point
it's got the armor, yeah.
It's got the new evade rule as well, which sometimes doesn't seem very much, but if you want to keep your models alive, it can actually be really, really good. Particularly as it doesn't specify that you have to go backwards if you get shot. So you could end up moving into cover or even into combat, which is a cheeky little thing that you can do. Other things they've got Inferno Drill. Now, Inferno Drill, it's a great big mining drill with, this game is played on an 8x8 cubed mat. So in the rules committee and designers' mind, what do you want an Inferno Drill to have? Well, range 24 cubes, of course.
Just to be safe.
I mean, what is that? That's
how
many mats is that?
Given that you're looking at me across a Deadzone map, I'm going to have to go...
It's like 3 whole mats long, isn't it?
Pretty much over here.
Still hit you. Yeah, range 24 does seem a little excessive. Yeah.
But you get the point.
Yeah, they made a point.
Basically, we can shoot. It's like the Death Star blowing up Alderaan. So that's a pretty good option now. I think it struggles a little bit, that one, doesn't it? Because I think people struggle to see it work well because it's a vehicle, so it can't climb stuff, which means you have to be seen. You don't get the height bonus typically. So it's been modified a little bit in Escalation by having this firing platform rule, which gives it an extra dice. So you're typically going to be rolling 4 dice unless it's a clear shot, which does make it a viable option, definitely.
I mean, you say it struggles a little. I played against 2 of them at Franticon this year, and they shoot on 4s with 4 dice to start with, and I can tell you they were pretty horrible.
And it's size 2, so it means it's got 3 wounds. It's got armor 1 and survives on a... Let me hear it, people.
Yeah, the number of wounds are irrelevant. You're not going to put any wounds on this thing.
Survives on a 3. And Claudio is doing 3 there in the German way, which is this way, isn't it?
Yeah, this way.
As opposed to if we were doing that way, wouldn't we? It's weird, isn't it?
Barbaric.
It gets worse.
There's no logic for doing that, is there, at all? It should be 1, 2, 3.
But then you have to go 4, so yeah, whatever.
It gets worse. It's a construct. You can't even pin it.
No.
And it has AP. Just
Only AP.
the thing, yeah, only 3, because Forgefathers don't have so much AP, so they really need that. They really need
Everything has AP.
What you do need to do, though, you do need to have an engineer to use it. I think that is the slight thing that makes it a harder choice for people to see the benefit in, I think. So I think it is a really good option, but you need to work it a bit more, don't you? It's not an easy thing to use. You have to try a little harder, I think, to use it. But it is really good.
Yeah, I think it's a nice synergy that you have to take an engineer, and Forgefathers have plenty of options for engineers. So
they got sentry guns as well now. So
yeah,
that engineer can do several things.
Yeah, you can do many things with engineers and take many different engineers. You don't only have the Brocker engineer per se. So it's if you go for that way, you can make some really, really crazy and effective plays. But it's, as you said, it's not only activate them a mini and go for it.
Right. Well, that's enough about Brockers, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we missed one actually. One didn't, which isn't. You might not think it's a Brocker thing, but the Excavator Robot I've put in the Brocker category because it looks like a Brocker. So this is a little mining robot. It's actually a Dreadball mini that got repurposed into Deadzone because it looks better in Deadzone than it looks in Dreadball. I'm gonna put that out there. It looks better in Deadzone.
Everything's better in Deadzone. Obviously.
No, it's true. So yeah, that's another kind of quite cool combat version. Heavily armored, 2 armor. Again, survives on 4s. Fights on 4s, AP2 drill. So you have to get it in there, but that's a pretty tasty option. A little bit more expensive at 20 points, but it's going to stick around pretty well. Again, solid, so it doesn't get pinned, doesn't even get moved, let alone anything else. And just resolutely push forwards and then drill between the freaking eyes. So yeah, enough about Brockers. What else have we got left? What other options have we got for the Forgefathers?
Well, there's various forms of well, I'll call them Steel Warriors as a base, but you start with the basic Steel Warrior, who we've discussed is pretty awesome. He's got his specialist, aka the Storm Rage Veteran, who has more weapon options in the specialist category. And then you start adding more armor on top of those to get the Forge Guard and Hammerfist Drop Trooper.
Yeah, there they are. They actually look quite sort of lithe and, they don't look... Well, actually, no, I'll take it back. They look like they're falling like stones, don't they?
They look like cubes falling in the sky.
I was thinking, they look quite mobile. No.
You just drop them from orbit. Absolutely. You don't need anything else. They just, where they land, they stand and shoot and fight. But
it's proper Iron Man landing, isn't it? You can see the crater appearing around them.
Forge for their mobility.
Yeah.
Just get the momentum and that's it.
Our legs are too short, so we just drop them from space straight on a target.
I mean, what's not to like about it, to be honest? And they are effective, because rules-wise, you can drop them literally anywhere on the battlefield from above, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems of Forgefathers. They aren't as fast as many other armies. And if you can drop a survivable dwarf with good weaponry in the battle lines of your enemy, it can be pretty devastating, or onto an objective.
And they've got really good weaponry, actually. And they've probably got some of the best weaponry, stock weaponry there is, isn't they?
What's better than arming a Forgefather with his standard AP1 weapon, shooting on 4s? Oh, well, let's make it AP2, because why not?
Mining lasers.
AP2.
Yeah.
There you have to activate them slightly differently, don't you? So you have to use them a bit differently. So again, it's one of those slightly more nuanced units. And what you can do they have to come down an empty cube. So that means that they're not able to sort of just land and barge from that way. Now there is a specialist who can do that. One of the leaders whose name escapes me, Bjorn Starfell. If you take him as a elite list, I forget which one of the books it's in, then he allows them to drop into a cube. But typically, you're not going to be taking him as well, and then they have to drop.
It's infestation.
Infestation, so thanks. And by dropping in, you do run the risk of leaving them, if you're not careful with them, leaving them a bit exposed. Because whilst they do look like Forge Guard, actually they're not quite as good because they've got a little less armor, because they've had to sort of sacrifice some armor for the flight ability, really. So you have to be a little bit more careful with them, but they're very, very good for disrupting a enemy's sort of attack plan. And getting in amongst those models that typically every faction's got someone they want to keep at the back, keep hidden. Often a leader, sometimes a like a weapons drone or something like that, and you can just really mess with them by dropping a model close to them.
Or on top of towers, get the extra die.
Yeah.
Always height bonus with AP2. It can be really deadly. You can even take down Striders with that thing.
Yeah, and then suddenly they've got your opponent has got to readjust their plan, possibly even move backwards to deal with the threat you've just dropped behind them. So I think they're a really good option. But they are expensive though, 26 points.
And you have to take an action to call them in.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's where I like my militia, because they can stand back, shoot once, and with the second action call down one of your drop troopers. So you don't have to do it with an expensive unit or aggressive unit like Rockers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's a good plan. There's someone who's just shooting, only using one of their short actions. Then what else is he doing? Might as well call them in. Yeah. Forge Guard, you mentioned them. They are probably the epitome, aren't they, of Forge Fathers, aren't they? These are your Lord's retinue, aren't they? These are sort of totally armored up to the nines. Armor 2, usual stats: shoot on 4s, fight on 5s, survive on 4s. But not only have they got armor 2, no, that's not enough, right? That's not enough. What else have they got?
They've got life support. So they go, a wound? What wound? I've got nothing.
Yeah.
It's gone. Forget about it.
So once per game, each Forge Guard can remove a wound. It's not even action, is it? I think it's just automatic, isn't it?
No, it just happens.
So
just have to survive the first.
Yeah, you have to work really hard to put a wound on them, and then guess what? Yeah. You have to do it again. So you've got to. Well, you haven't got to try, but it's ideally you want to delete one.
One shot them.
Yeah, because then life support doesn't kick in because there's no life to be boosted.
There is no overkill against Forge Guard. Yeah. Always.
They're horrible creatures, actually, but they are slow as anything, aren't they? So the movement's 1/1. There's not many models in Deadzone that will move with 1/1. Forge Guard and a Plague Lord we mentioned before. That's about it, isn't it? So that does mean that they are very plodding, because unless you get a whole bunch of move dice, and if you're running a couple of them, then you probably aren't getting enough move dice to do it for all of them, of course. And you're typically going to want to shoot because the weapons are good, they shoot well. So they are not going to be running across the battlefield. But in some missions where you've got objectives in the center, they can easily be putting pressure on round 3 of a 5-round game. So they are no mean thing, and they really are a punishment soak. You know, they will soak up a lot of damage, which is basically that's the overarching meta, really, isn't it, of the Forge? That's their thing. They can just take the punishment, and they'll dish out enough as well.
Yep.
That's why the numbers are small, because it's so hard to get rid of each model.
I think the biggest problem is that if your opponent has a high AP weapon, you only are size 1. So you only have 2 hit points because you're a little dwarf still. So he only has to get 2 more successes when he's ignoring the armor. The life support won't kick in if you insta-kill them. And then a really, really expensive model dies. So you have still to be careful if your opponent has that weapon. So you have to play around it or kill them, so on. But if not, they are really, really durable.
As you say, I mean, in Deadzone, I mean, you just throw enough stuff at something, everything will go in the end. But they are a big, so you can spend rounds trying to get rid of Forge Guard if you haven't got enough.
Ideally, you'd send in a big monster
If you've got monsters,
aberration, stage 1A, things like that, things that have got AP to go through the armor, they're always going to be bigger and just going to smash their faces in.
But not all armies have got all the options all the time, have they? So, you might have great shooting, but not much AP, like your Styrians. You might have lots of Gribblies that need to get in the mix, but then you're going to take hits on the way because you haven't got much shooting. So that's one of the beauties, isn't it? That each faction has its own thing, its own way of doing stuff. So who else have we got? We've got another troop we haven't mentioned yet, haven't we? The Thorgarim. Skipped over it, which is like a variant of a Steel Warrior, really.
Steel Warrior with a hammer, yeah. I mean,
with a big hammer, two-handed heat hammer.
Two-handed hammer. If you wanted a one-handed hammer, not interested. Two-handed hammers, where it's at. So they're a neat option. They're pretty much like a Brocker, aren't they? Actually, but instead of having the burst pistol, they gain armor and more AP. So they're a good option. They're a little bit more. If you knew who you were playing, I think you'd be more likely to pick them, depending on what you needed the AP for, wouldn't you? Whereas if you were playing generic, probably your Brocker's a slightly more versatile option and a bit cheaper.
There's not a lot of models you need AP2 against, is there?
Well, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, really, it's your Peacekeepers, other Forge Guard, of course. What else would there be? Vehicles, yeah, a few vehicles. Striders as well. And actually, they can do pretty well against a Strider, though. I mean, they fight on fours with Frenzy 1, so they can certainly make a Strider think twice before it just walks out the cube. I've killed a Strider with one before. Oh, it might have been two of them. But the Striders need to be a little bit more cautious around them than they would with, say, a Brocker. They just walk away from a Brocker, no problem.
I think they're quite specialist for a troop choice, actually.
Yes, they are. Yeah,
but I think the biggest problem is many other armies would love to have this troop choice. The Forge Fathers really don't have problems with high AP or AP, so it's not as needed. Yeah, but I think one of the things which can help against non-armored enemies is the knockback. Because they have knockback on their two-handed heat hammers, which can help free your Forge Guard or your specialists from some melee monsters. You don't have to kill it, knock it out of the cube, it's okay. Knock it against the wall. If it hasn't armor, it gets another hit, or knock it down a building. So you get those who aren't armored get more damage out of being knocked down against the wall. So that's maybe a thing where you can use them even if your opponent doesn't have that much high armor units.
Yeah, and I think what Claudio said there is the use of things like knockback, blast, and frag and stuff like that to do extra damage to units by forcing them to hit other things like walls or off of buildings is no small thing at all. I've seen lots of models die from hitting the naffy little wall.
Because you play Vermin.
And I love playing reps, which we will cover another episode.
Even worse, actually.
Reps are the number one faction which is dying from getting smacked into walls.
There's plenty of models like that. And there's nothing better than fragging Kalishi. Literally nothing better, which we'll come to later.
Yeah.
Right. So. Then in escalation, a whole bunch of mercs. We won't talk about those. A whole bunch of living legends and stuff. What else have we got? We've got the Iron Ancestors, haven't we? We've got the big fellas. Yeah. There we go. Dun dun dun. They're the Forge Father equivalent of a Strider, aren't they? But they're more than a Strider. They're better than a Strider in every way. Actually,
you already said it. The Forge Father equivalent. So it's better armored. Better weapons.
Shoots better in many cases.
Yeah.
Only the Enforcer one shoots as well.
There was a time where they were in danger of breaking the game.
Yes, there was. But they are incredibly expensive. So they're 44 points and 3 victory points as base. That's a naked Iron Ancestor. No weapons at all.
How many weapons?
No weapons at all. So you could easily, what would you give them? If you loaded one out, you're typically coming. The cheapest version is probably the twin hailstorms on both, isn't it? No, the hammer. So that's another 12 points. So that's 56 points and 5 victory points. Is the cheapest with 2 weapon options. You could have one with only 1 arm, but that would look stupid, you know. So that is a huge point sink and victory point sink. So you're really only able to run that in a 200-point list.
In an already expensive army.
Exactly. Yeah. Unless you want to run buckets of militia. So yeah, it's a pricey old thing. Having said that, I have never killed one. I once played a game where it was the only model left. I had 8 Reb models of various things, some quite good ones, like snipers and stuff, standing with height around an Iron Ancestor, all shooting down on it. I took it down to 1 wound. It still didn't die. I was just like, this is not happening.
Usually not giving away the 5 victory points.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. But
you can do it with like Asterians with missile launchers or something like that. A couple of them or something, some good rolls. You can certainly do it, but you really have to work at it.
But then again, I think the reason why most of the Iron Ancestors survive a game is because the most effective play against them is play around them. Because they are so expensive, and that's something, if you play an Iron Ancestor, you have to be aware that your enemy can ignore them, even though they can punish them with their fire control special rule, which is really, really nasty.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? So I typically ignore them and kill everything else, and then win the game by winning the objectives or whatever. But you're absolutely right. If you've got to do something to at least be conscious of it, if you could, particularly if you've got a double Hailstorm option, that fire control. So that rule allows you to shoot with both weapons as a normal shoot action. Now, if you spend it used to be even worse before Outbreak and then Escalation has kept the same, where if you spent a shoot command dice, you would get to shoot with both again. So you get 4 shots to most models, 1 boosted to 2 shots. Whereas now it's actually 2, but then the extra command dice now only actually gives you 1 extra shot, which is a bit of a nerf, which brings them a little bit more into line. But they are still horrendous, and they're so survivable. You can literally stand them in the middle of the battlefield and just blat stuff to left and right, and just like, well, come at me if you want.
I think they are also very versatile because you have options for it burns, you have options for melee power if you lack that. So you can always like move forward and shoot, and in the end, you have everything you need. You can get with the Iron Ancestor. It's not cheap, but you can get it. If
that wasn't enough, there's another version as well.
Well, that's their version of the concept. They don't have a Plague 1A or a Teraton or anything like that, but they can just have an Iron Ancestor with 2 hammers.
Smacky, smacky.
There is a theme with the Forge Fathers, I think. Yeah, something like that.
So the Thor Pattern Iron Ancestor, 50 points, 5 victory points. We haven't mentioned that they've got armor for all of these Iron Ancestors, have we? So actually that's horrendous. Now, he has 2 Forged Hammers, AP2, Frenzy, fights on 5s, but Frenzy...
3.
So he's typically going to be rolling 4 dice, isn't he? The 3 base, and he's bigger. So chances are that he's actually hitting with every single dice he has. He's not the best fighter, but every time you re-roll a dice, there's always a chance that you'll get an 8 as well. So that means that Frenzy is worth more than you might think in a standard game. We don't have this exploding mechanic in the dice. So every dice you re-roll, it could be more than 1's dice worth of benefit. So he's a really good option. And he's got smoke grenade launchers as well now, which means that he's just that little bit more likely to stop someone shooting at him as well and keep, because he can fight in a smoke cloud as well as anybody. He can fight in the clear, so it doesn't matter, but he's not getting shot then. So yeah, he's another good option. But again, very pricey. So leaders-wise, what have we got for the Forge Fathers?
Well, you've sort of got one of each theme, haven't you? So you've got a Forge Lord who's basically your Forge Guard man, but better. He's a particularly good fighter as well. You've got a Forge Guard Huskarl, who's the leader of the Forge Guard. You've got a Chief Brocker, Lord of the Brockers. You've got a Steel Warrior Huskarl, who's the Steel Warrior version of the leader. And you've even got a guy with a two-handed hammer.
He's taking his helmet off. He's that confident. He's taking his helmet off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. You got a leader for each one, and I guess the overarching theme on all of those is that most of their splats are really about keeping your models alive as well, aren't they?
Mm.
They're either boosting your armor, or they're reducing the AP of things that hit you, or giving you resilience and evade. So they are all sort of like, well, not all of them, but most of them are trying to keep your models alive again.
One is not. One is the aggressive one, and I love him. The one with the two-handed hammer, the Thorgrim Huskar, he can make your models with hammers throw those hammers as frag attacks. That's awesome. Just play a whole army of heat hammer swinging maniacs like Brockers, Thorgrim, Forge Guard, all of them, which not the Iron Ancestor, the Thor Iron
that
Ancestor.
Would be too much.
All the others can throw their hammers with a splat, which is awesome to disrupt the enemy. And you don't need, it's a frag attack, so you don't need to have a good shooting value, which most of them don't have because they only have a 5 arc. So it's a really fun option, and it's like the most aggressive one you can take splat wise.
It's only frag 2, so it may not damage them, but because it blows them around, it might well knock them closer to you and make people now targets for fights, who of course are pinned as well.
Knock them closer, you can pin them, you can throw them against walls and buildings. Yeah, that's the theme.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to qualify your statement about being the only aggressive one. The Forge Lord allows you to reroll any number of dice in a fight using fight or a survival roll. So if you're going into a fight with that, you can just reroll as many misses as you like. It's like unlimited frenzy.
True that.
I think there's just one living legend leader I'd like to mention as well. That's Ingolf Krestersson. So he is effectively a Forge Lord. But the only reason I want to mention him is because he is the only model in the entire game who has Tactician.
It hurts.
Not doing it.
Tactician 3. And that is immense, actually. Command dice are, they can win you a game. So having 5 extra ones across a game, of course, is immense. It really is. And he's literally the only model in the whole game, unless I've mistaken one, who brings that many dice.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And he's also, he's survivable, of course.
Of course, yeah.
So you don't kill the 3 tactician.
Yeah, he only shoots and fights on 3s. I mean, come on. It's like a short Asterion. And he comes with his own robo-dog.
Almost the only fast model in the list. It moves at 2-3. Right, so I guess what would be the take-home message for Forge Farmers? What should you, if you're going to play Forge Farmers, how would you play them? There's 2 ways really, isn't there? I think you go aggro, get in the mix, punch stuff with your Brockers, maybe Thagarim, Brocker bikes, maybe. Channel your Little Man Syndrome.
Your Little Man Syndrome, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Or you go the slightly more traditional, plodding, resilient, but good shooting sort of thing. Loads of weapon options for suppression and stuff like that. And I think they're both very, very viable options, aren't they? We talked about a full Brocker list before. So there are plenty of different ways of playing Forge Fighters, actually, aren't they? But they're not the fastest, of course. So you're not going to win the game in round 2, but you'll still be there come the end of the round 4 or 5, whenever the game finishes. You will still have models left, but you're never going to have numbers in your advantage, are you?
No. That can be a problem. If it goes against you early on, you could just find yourself with not enough models to
lose a couple early.
Objectives. Either to kill stuff or to get on objectives.
Yeah,
you struggle not to be able to do very much, even if you do survive.
You're very likely to be going first every round, of course, because there's that sort of yin-yang thing that happens with Deadzone. Of course, that if you finish first, you go first. So if you have less models, there is an advantage that you're likely to get the first pick of what to do next round. So if you can delete something first every time, then you'll be staying on top. But yeah, it can be harder, of course. Forge Guard, Forefathers, not even Forge Guard. Yeah. Good, excellent. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you very much for watching. Please check out the rest of our Wait for Fire videos and the Stuff to Wait for Fire podcast. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.